Not because you are angry, not because you are bitter, but because your spirit was never designed to beg for recognition. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that persistence proves love, that endurance earns belonging, that if you knock long enough on a closed door, someone will eventually open it and thank you for your patience. But life has a way of teaching us quieter, truer lessons. One of them is this: what must be forced is rarely meant to stay. There is a particular exhaustion that comes from chasing people who do not see you. It is not the tiredness of hard work or honest effort. It is the fatigue of shrinking yourself to fit into places that never intended to hold you. Each unanswered message, each delayed reply, each half-hearted response chips away at your sense of worth until you begin to wonder whether the problem is your voice instead of their silence. But silence is not always empty. Sometimes it is an answer spoken without words. You must understand this: deeply ignoring is a decision. Distance is a choice. Indifference is not confusion. When someone shows you, again and again, that your presence is optional, believe them the first time your heart feels that sting. Do not rewrite their behavior into excuses that soothe your fear of letting go. Do not tell yourself they are busy when they are consistently absent. Do not confuse mystery with meaning. What is meant for you will not require you to disappear in order to be noticed. There is nothing noble about self-abandonment. You cannot earn love by proving how much neglect you can tolerate. You cannot persuade someone to value you by offering unlimited access to your patience. Love that requires you to chase it is not love. It is a negotiation where you keep lowering the price until you are given away for nothing. And still, you will not be chosen in the way your soul deserves. Stop chasing people who ignore you, because every step you take toward them is a step away from yourself. Each time you overextend, over-explain, over-give, you teach your own heart that it must perform to be worthy. You begin to measure your value by how much effort you invest, rather than how deeply you are respected. That is a dangerous bargain. It leaves you empty while convincing others that emptiness is all you have to offer. You were not born to be an option waiting patiently in the background of someone else's life. You were born with a voice meant to be heard, with hands meant to be held, with a presence meant to be welcomed without conditions. The right connections do not make you question your importance. They do not leave you guessing whether you matter. They do not train you to read between the lines of neglect and call it affection. There comes a moment of quiet clarity when you realize that chasing is not loyalty. It is fear dressed up as devotion. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear that if you stop running after those who ignore you, no one else will come. But solitude is not your enemy. Staying where you are unseen is. Being alone can teach you how to listen to your own heartbeat again, how to hear your own needs without interruption, how to remember who you were before you began asking for permission to exist. When you stop chasing, something powerful happens. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your energy. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were scattered at the feet of people who never bent down to pick them up. You begin to notice how heavy it felt to carry relationships on your back alone. You begin to feel how light your spirit becomes when you stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. Do not mistake this for pride. This is not about punishment or revenge. This is about alignment. This is about choosing peace over performance. This is about recognizing that mutual effort is the minimum requirement, not a luxury. You are not asking for too much when you ask to be acknowledged. You are not demanding too much when you want consistency. You are not difficult for wanting reciprocity. You are simply honest about your needs. People who ignore you often benefit from your pursuit. Your chasing feeds their comfort. Your availability reassures their ego. Your silence when you are hurt teaches them that they can continue without consequence. When you stop chasing, you remove the reward. Not to teach them a lesson, but to teach yourself one. You learn that love should feel steady, not anxious. You learn that connection should feel nourishing, not depleting. You learn that you are allowed to walk away without explaining yourself to anyone who never took the time to understand you. Let them go. Let them misunderstand your distance. Let them call it coldness if they must. You do not owe warmth to those who left you standing in the cold. You do not owe loyalty to neglect. You do not owe access to anyone who treats your presence as background noise. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is sacred work. There will be moments when you miss them. That does not mean you were wrong to stop chasing. Missing someone is simply proof that you cared, not proof that you should return to being ignored. Honor the love you gave by refusing to give it where it is not valued. Love does not disappear when you walk away. It transforms into self-respect. You will discover that the moment you stop chasing, you begin attracting. Not because you are playing games, but because you are standing still long enough for the right people to find you. People who see you without needing reminders. People who meet your effort with their own. People who do not confuse your kindness with weakness. People who understand that presence is a privilege, not an entitlement. Stop chasing people who ignore you because your life is not a rehearsal. Every moment spent waiting to be chosen is a moment stolen from becoming who you are meant to be. There are rooms you have not entered yet, conversations that will feel like home, laughter that will not require you to perform. But you cannot reach them if you are busy knocking on doors that have been locked from the inside. Choose yourself, not out of defiance, but out of devotion to your own becoming. Choose to believe that you are enough without pursuit. Choose to trust that what is meant for you will arrive without you running after it. Choose to rest in the knowing that your worth does not increase with effort. It is inherent, steady, and unchanging. And one day, you will look back at the version of yourself who chased silence, and you will feel compassion, not shame. You will thank them for surviving long enough to learn when to stop. You will realize that walking away was not a loss, but a return to dignity, a return to balance, a return to a life where love meets you halfway and stays. Stop chasing people who ignore you. Stand where you are. Let what truly sees you come into focus. Self-respect begins where pursuit ends, not because stopping makes you superior, but because continuing would require you to abandon yourself. There is a quiet moment, often unnoticed, when you realize that your effort has become heavier than the connection itself. You notice that you are the one initiating every conversation, adjusting every expectation, forgiving every absence. At first you call it patience, then you call it loyalty. Eventually, you are forced to admit that it is fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten, fear that if you stop reaching out, nothing will reach back. Pursuit has a way of disguising itself as love. It tells you that endurance proves commitment, that tolerating inconsistency makes you strong, that if you just try a little harder, explain a little clearer, give a little more, you will finally be met with the care you seek. But self-respect does not grow in spaces where you must convince someone of your value. It withers there, slowly, as you begin to measure your worth by how much effort you expend rather than how much regard you receive. When you are chasing, your focus is outward. You are watching responses, waiting for validation, hoping for signs that you matter. Your mood rises and falls with someone else's attention. In that state, your sense of self becomes fragile, dependent, conditional. Self-respect cannot survive that dependency. It requires steadiness. It requires an inner agreement that your value is not negotiable, not situational, not dependent on being chosen by someone who remains undecided about you. Ending pursuit does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop performing. It means you stop chasing clarity from people who benefit from keeping you uncertain. It means you stop shrinking your needs so they can stay comfortable. Self-respect asks a simple question that pursuit avoids. If this connection disappeared tomorrow, would I still feel whole? If the answer is no, then something essential has been misplaced. Many people fear that ending pursuit will make them cold, distant, or unloving. In truth, it makes them honest. It aligns action with dignity. You can still wish someone well and refuse to chase them. You can still feel affection and choose distance. Self-respect does not require bitterness. It requires boundaries. It requires the courage to accept what is being shown instead of clinging to what is being promised. There is a difference between effort and overextension. Effort is mutual. Overextension is one-sided. When you consistently overextend, you teach others how to treat you. You show them that your time is flexible, your boundaries are soft, your needs are optional. Ending pursuit redraws that lesson. It says that access to you is not automatic, that presence must be met with presence, that care must be returned to continue. Self-respect grows in the pauses you allow yourself. The pause before sending another message. The pause before making another excuse for someone's absence. The pause where you ask yourself whether this action honors you or erases you. In those pauses, clarity emerges. You begin to see patterns instead of isolated incidents. You begin to notice how often you have been waiting instead of living. When pursuit ends, power quietly returns. Not power over others, but power over yourself. You reclaim your emotional energy. You stop investing in outcomes you cannot control. You begin to redirect your attention toward what nourishes you rather than what depletes you. This redirection is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It happens internally through small decisions that accumulate into a new posture of self-trust. People may not immediately understand your change. Those who benefited from your pursuit may interpret your absence as distance, your boundaries as rejection, your silence as indifference. But self-respect is not shaped by other people's comfort. It is shaped by your willingness to remain aligned with yourself, even when it costs you familiarity. Even when it costs you people who only stayed while you were overgiving. Ending pursuit also forces you to confront loneliness without distraction. Chasing often keeps you busy enough to avoid sitting with yourself. When you stop, there is space. In that space, you may feel grief, disappointment, or the ache of unmet expectations. Self-respect does not bypass those feelings. It allows them, knowing that avoiding discomfort is how self-abandonment begins. As you stop pursuing, you start listening. You listen to your body when it tenses around certain names. You listen to your intuition when it warns you about imbalance. You listen to your own voice, one that may have been quieted by the noise of trying to be enough. Self-respect is built by honoring those signals instead of overriding them for the sake of connection. Eventually, you notice a shift. Interactions feel lighter. Your words are no longer rushed. Your presence is no longer anxious. You are no longer strategizing how to be chosen because you have already chosen yourself. This choice does not make you closed, it makes you selective. It refines your standards, not out of arrogance, but out of self-knowledge. The end of pursuit is also the beginning of discernment. You recognize the difference between interest and convenience, between attention and intention, between affection and habit. You stop romanticizing effort that costs you peace. You stop mistaking familiarity for compatibility. Self-respect sharpens your vision, allowing you to see what truly aligns instead of what merely feels familiar. When you no longer chase, you create room. Room for relationships that do not require persuasion. Room for conversations that feel balanced. Room for connections that arrive without pressure. This room is not empty, it is intentional. It protects what matters. It preserves your energy. It signals that you understand your own worth well enough to wait for what meets it naturally. Self-respect does not ask you to prove your strength by staying where you are undervalued. It asks you to trust yourself enough to leave. It asks you to believe that walking away from what diminishes you is not failure, but wisdom. That choosing dignity over attachment is not loss, but alignment. That ending pursuit is not giving up, but standing still long enough to remember who you are and what you deserve, long enough to feel the quiet confidence that comes from no longer negotiating your worth, long enough to recognize that the most powerful relationships in your life begin with the one you maintain with yourself, the one that refuses to beg for visibility, the one that understands that respect is not requested, it is embodied. It is demonstrated through the courage to stop reaching where nothing reaches back, through the resolve to remain grounded even when old patterns call you to chase, through the steady practice of choosing peace over pursuit, presence over performance, dignity over desperation. Walking away restores personal authority, because authority is not something you demand from others. It is something you reclaim within yourself. For a long time, you may have believed that staying proved strength, that endurance showed character, that loyalty meant holding on even when you were being diminished. But authority is not built through suffering and silence. It is built the moment you decide that your presence is not something to be wasted, where it is not honored. Personal authority begins with ownership. Ownership of your time, your energy, your emotions, your attention. When you stay in spaces that drain you, you quietly hand that ownership away. You allow other people's moods, priorities, and indifference to dictate how you feel about yourself. Walking away interrupts that pattern. It is not an act of escape. It is an act of reclamation. You take back what you gave without permission, your power to choose. Many people fear walking away because they confuse authority with control. They believe authority means making others change, making others understand, making others finally behave better. But true authority has nothing to do with controlling anyone else. It is about governing yourself. When you walk away, you are not saying, "You are wrong." You are saying, "This is not right for me." That distinction is where authority lies. There is a quiet confidence that appears when you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to listen. Explanation is often a form of seeking approval. It keeps you tethered to the hope that if you say the right words, you will be treated differently. Walking away releases you from that hope. It tells your nervous system that you no longer need permission to protect yourself. Authority is felt most clearly in moments of restraint. The moment you choose not to respond. The moment you choose not to chase closure. The moment you choose not to defend your worth. These moments may feel uncomfortable at first because they go against old habits of over-giving and over-proving. But discomfort is not danger. It is the sensation of growth. When you walk away, you stop negotiating your boundaries. You stop allowing exceptions that slowly erase you. You stop teaching people that access to you is unlimited regardless of how they behave. Authority is established when your boundaries become consistent, not emotional, not reactive, but steady. Consistency sends a message without words. Walking away also restores authority because it realigns you with reality. It forces you to accept what is, rather than what you wish someone would become. Staying often requires imagination. Walking away requires truth. Truth has weight, and that weight grounds you. It brings you back into your body, back into your instincts, back into self-trust. There is power in choosing absence over presence when presence costs you dignity. Your absence speaks differently than your arguments ever could. It removes the dynamic entirely. It ends the cycle of hoping, waiting, and being disappointed. Authority grows when you stop participating in dynamics that rely on your compliance. People may react strongly when you walk away. Some will be confused because they are not used to you choosing yourself. Some will feel challenged because your authority exposes their lack of accountability. Some will try to pull you back with guilt, nostalgia, or sudden attention. Authority is tested in these moments, not by how loudly you defend your decision, but by how calmly you stand by it. Walking away teaches you that you are capable of surviving discomfort without abandoning yourself. It shows you that loss is not always destruction. Sometimes it is correction. You learn that the fear of leaving was often worse than the reality of staying gone. This realization strengthens your internal foundation. Authority is built on evidence, and walking away gives you evidence of your own resilience. When you remain where you are undervalued, your authority erodes slowly. You begin to doubt your perceptions. You second-guess your needs. You tolerate behavior that once would have felt unacceptable. Walking away reverses that erosion. It sharpens your sense of right and wrong for your own life. It reminds you that your standards exist for a reason. Personal authority also changes the way you show up elsewhere. Once you have walked away from what disrespects you, you become less willing to settle in other areas. Your posture shifts. Your voice steadies. Your decisions become clearer. You no longer rush to be chosen because you know what it costs to stay where you are unseen. Walking away is not always dramatic. Often it is subtle. A change in availability, a redirection of energy, a refusal to engage in cycles that drain you. Authority does not require announcements. It requires alignment. When your actions match your values, you no longer need to convince anyone of your strength. There is a moment, sometimes much later, when you realize that walking away did not make your life smaller. It made it quieter. And in that quiet, you heard yourself again. You noticed how much energy you had been spending managing other people's reactions. Authority returned when you stopped doing that work for them. You also learn that walking away does not close you off to connection. It refines it. You become more discerning. You recognize mutuality faster. You feel imbalance sooner. Authority sharpens perception. It allows you to choose relationships from clarity instead of fear. Walking away restores personal authority because it ends the habit of self-betrayal. Every time you stay where you feel diminished, a small part of you learns that your comfort is negotiable. Walking away rewrites that lesson. It teaches your inner world that you will protect it. That protection becomes the foundation of confidence. Authority is not loud. It does not seek validation. It does not need to prove anything. It stands firm in its choices, even when misunderstood. Walking away is one of the clearest expressions of that firmness. It is a declaration made through action rather than words. As you practice walking away from what harms you, you begin to trust yourself more. Trust strengthens authority. You stop doubting your instincts. You stop waiting for external confirmation. You recognize that you are capable of making decisions that honor your well-being. Walking away also dissolves false responsibility. You stop carrying the burden of fixing, saving, or enduring for the sake of others. Authority reminds you that you are responsible for your actions, not for managing someone else's growth. This release is freeing. It allows you to focus on your own alignment. Over time, walking away becomes less about loss and more about preservation. Preservation of peace. Preservation of identity. Preservation of energy. Authority is not built by how much you tolerate, but by how well you preserve what matters. The strongest form of authority is quiet certainty. Certainty that you can leave and still be whole. Certainty that you can be alone without being diminished. Certainty that your worth does not depend on staying connected to what drains you. Walking away nurtures that certainty, reinforcing it each time you choose yourself over familiarity, each time you refuse to shrink to maintain access, each time you honor your boundaries, even when it would be easier to ignore them, each time you stand still instead of chasing, each time you let silence replace explanation, each time you trust that your life expands not by holding on, but by releasing what no longer respects who you are becoming. What values you will never require pursuit, because value recognizes value without persuasion. When something truly sees you, it does not need to be chased, reminded, or convinced. It arrives with a natural ease, an unforced presence that does not leave you questioning your importance. Pursuit becomes necessary only when worth is unevenly distributed, when one person is trying to extract meaning from a space that was never designed to offer it. Value does not hide. It does not play games with distance. It does not test how much you are willing to endure in order to be chosen. When you are valued, effort moves in both directions. There is balance in communication, intention in action, and clarity in presence. You are not left guessing where you stand or wondering whether your needs are unreasonable. Value speaks through consistency, not promises. It shows up without being summoned. It does not disappear and then return with excuses. It does not require you to chase attention, affection, or respect, because it understands that these are not rewards to be earned, but expressions to be shared. Pursuit often begins when self-doubt enters the room. It convinces you that if you just do more, give more, explain more, you will finally be seen. But value does not need performance. It does not need you to exhaust yourself to prove your worth. When someone truly values you, your presence alone is enough. You are not competing for space in their life. You are not an afterthought. You are integrated, considered, and included without negotiation. There is a difference between desire and desperation. Desire is mutual curiosity moving toward connection. Desperation is one-sided effort trying to force alignment. What values you will never require desperation. It will not require you to abandon your standards or silence your intuition. It will not ask you to accept less in the hope of someday receiving more. Value does not grow in scarcity. It grows in recognition. Many people confuse intensity with value. They believe that longing, anxiety, and uncertainty are signs of depth. But value feels steady, not frantic. It feels calm, not chaotic. It does not keep you on edge waiting for signs of approval. When you are valued, you feel grounded. You feel safe enough to be yourself without editing your needs. You feel secure enough to speak honestly without fear of abandonment. What values you will never require pursuit, because pursuit places you in a position of proving, while value places you in a position of being. Proving asks you to justify your existence. Being allows you to exist freely. In spaces where you are valued, you are not asked to earn basic decency. Respect is given, not negotiated. Care is offered, not withheld as leverage. Pursuit drains you because it keeps you focused on what is lacking. Value nourishes you because it affirms what is already present. When you chase, your energy moves outward, constantly seeking validation. When you are valued, your energy stabilizes. You no longer feel the need to overextend or overfunction. You are met where you are, not where you pretend to be. There is a quiet relief in realizing that what is meant for you will not require you to run after it. This relief is not resignation, it is trust. Trust that alignment does not require force. Trust that the right connections recognize you without instruction. Trust that you do not have to contort yourself to fit into places that were not designed for you. Value does not require you to sacrifice your peace. It does not ask you to tolerate inconsistency or disrespect. It does not thrive on confusion. When you are valued, clarity becomes normal. Expectations are communicated. Boundaries are honored. Your time is respected. Your emotions are taken seriously. Pursuit often creates imbalance because it teaches one person to lead while the other follows. Value creates partnership. There is shared responsibility for the connection. One person does not carry the emotional labor alone. One person does not constantly initiate while the other responds at their convenience. Value shows up with intention. What values you will never require pursuit, because pursuit implies that something is running away. Value stays. It does not need to be cornered or captured. It chooses to remain. It does not disappear when things become inconvenient. It does not make you feel replaceable. It reassures rather than destabilizes. When you stop pursuing what does not value you, you begin to notice how different valued connections feel. Conversations flow instead of stall. Effort feels natural instead of forced. You do not feel anxious about saying the wrong thing or asking for too much. You feel accepted, not tolerated. Value does not make you question your worth. It reinforces it. It does not leave you analyzing tone, timing, or response length. It does not make you feel like you are always one step away from being forgotten. When you are valued, you are remembered without reminders. Pursuit can become addictive because it creates emotional highs and lows. A response feels like relief.